The word protein originates from the Greek term meaning of prime importance. But really, how important is it? Hello Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers, this is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com. I had a question just recently about my thoughts on high protein diets. So that's what I want to make this video about, and basically the term high protein is not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's based on someone's opinion of what would be constituted as a high protein diet. So there have been people who tried to quantify it, but basically I try to think about it in maybe 4 tiers. So you have low protein, moderate protein, high protein, and then very high protein. Very high protein is hard to do, and I think it's unhealthy and pretty much impossible in most regards. What I think is optimal for most people, and specifically thinking about myself, is around the mid to high range. So this means that you're getting enough protein. You're getting, if you're really active, you might be wanting to aim for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but some bodybuilders go so far as to do 2 grams, and I think that's overkill. You're relying on protein for a fuel source, and I think that's just silly because it's one of the most difficult of the 3 macronutrients to break down into energy. There's more waste products created in the body that your body then has to work hard to get rid of, and it has wear and tear on the body when you're using protein as a fuel source. So you want to use enough protein to rebuild your cells and muscular tissue. If you're bodybuilding, yes, you need about 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you're doing any sort of strength training, you probably need close to the same amount. But for the average person, you could even go to half that. The idea of the USDA guidelines of, I don't know, it's like between 50 and 70 grams of protein, depending on if you're male or female a day. I think that's a little low. That's getting into the realm of the low protein recommendations by people on very high carbohydrate diets, vegan diets that are based on grains, fruits, starchy root vegetables, etc., and not having a lot of more protein-rich foods in there. So when you only eat the lowest protein content foods, yes, you're going to be hovering around that 10% or less of calories, and in the long run, I haven't seen too many people that are successful with this, and most people feel better on that moderate to high protein. The high protein diets come from focusing on lean animal foods, eating egg whites without the yolk, eating protein powder. So it's a really modernized thing that's not possible to get in the wild. And we see a lot of indigenous cultures, when they'd be starved of fat, they really highly praise fat. When they'd starve of fat, they would get sick easier. So a lot of native tribes recognize this. One of the most prized things when hunting animals was the bigger animals because they have more fat on them than the leaner, smaller, fast-paced animals. But on older animals, they develop much more subcutaneous fat under the back, and that was very highly prized. And the idea in the paleo community, and there's sort of 2 tiers to paleo now. So when people just talk about paleo like one big thing and point things out from different people, and it gets confusing because you have to know the intricacies of the different parts of the movement. So there's sort of the paleo version 1.0, which a lot of people refer to as Paleo, or the Paleo diet, and that makes sense because a lot of people drop off it because it's this very high protein, moderate to lower fat, and then moderate amounts of carbohydrates. So getting a lot of calories from protein, like I said, it's the hardest thing for your body to work with. There are definitely some benefits to it, which can be summed up by an excellent debate I highly recommend everyone check out. It's a PDF format that you can check out at the links below. It's number 1 there. And this is a debate between Lauren Cordain, professor, and then also Professor Dr. T. Colin Campbell. And basically, to sum it up, Dr. Lauren Cordain gives nearly 200 references. They each wrote a main paper giving their stance on things, and then they each responded to each other's paper. So there was basically 2 papers from each of them in those orders. And you know, Dr. Campbell had about 3 references through his 2 posts, and Dr. Lauren Cordain had close to 200. So he has a lot more things backing it up. Dr. Campbell was talking a lot about this philosophical stuff and the way you look at science, and basically trying to dismiss Dr. Campbell's stuff just because he's not the same type of scientist as him. And it's really silly when you look at it. A lot of people agree that Dr. Cordain really dominated that one. But you can see that there's a lot of benefits to protein, and there's some myths, especially around kidney health. I think that's very individualistic. Obviously, someone with kidney problems who happens to be the type of person that doesn't do well on higher protein would obviously have problems with a higher protein diet in their kidney health. But in a lot of people, as can be seen if you're looking through the references there and you check up on those studies, there's a lot of people, even long 9-year studies or 11-year studies, of people being on a higher protein diet, very large groups of people, and having no change in kidney function. So again, I'm getting off track here, but in general, the higher protein diets have the problems of this increases load. So that's that problem with Paleo, is that it's sort of still shy of fat. It's afraid of fat. It's got some of the mainstream ideas of what's a healthy fat in there, like the avocados and olive oil, because they're higher in the monounsaturated fat, but it doesn't have a lot of saturated fat. It's saying, you know, butter's bad, coconut products aren't so good, and even the fat on ruminants is unhealthy. But Dr. Cordain's shifted his perception of that a little bit, but he's still in that paradigm, and I think that shows for the results people get compared to a program like Mark Sisson's, which is some people are calling Paleo 2.0, or there's another blog called Archivore. If you just search Archivore on Google, you'll get that blog, and that's Dr. Kurt Harris. And so both of them, they have much better physiques in my opinion than Dr. Cordain, and it really shows that getting more calories from fat and being in that ketosis state results in fat loss, obviously, from the body. It can stay a lot trimmer, and probably doesn't cause as much quick aging as you see on sort of the Paleo diet, and also some of the higher carbohydrate type diet promoters. Another interesting thing to look at is the Hippocrates diet, which is a very high protein diet, but it's totally vegan. There's a difference in outcome from the Hippocrates diet as compared to the Paleo 1.0 diet. So both I'd classify as very high protein, but there's definitely a difference when you're getting animal protein that's lean versus mostly like sprouts, greens, algae and all that. Both have their pluses, both have their minuses, and in my opinion both have a lot of people that just, it does not work for them. And relying on protein as a caloric source, again, it burns slowly, which is good, especially for diabetes and blood sugar issues, but it's not sustainable. And if we were to talk about very low protein diets that are very high in carbohydrates, again, it has the benefits of, you know, rapid energy release because of these easily broken down starches and fruits that are just containing this straight glucose and fructose. But again, we see problems with that long term that these camps rigorously deny and choose not to look at. I think every dietary paradigm has its pluses and minuses. They're in varying amounts, and not every diet works for everyone. That's really clear in my opinion at this point. And just looking at a book like Metabolic Typing by William Walcott is a great introduction to that concept. And there's a lot of work out there, especially comparing dominant glands to others. Blood typing is not such a realistic science, but the gland typing is much better backed by some of this research. And there's a good doctor you can also look up, Dr. Beeler. I've got his name here. You can search that on Google to find some information about it. We'll get back to the main topic of this video in one moment, but I wanted to let you know about a great sale that's happening right now. It's with Thrival as of the posting of this video, and you can save 10% off your final order by using the coupon code New Year, which you see up on the screen here. One word, no spaces, and that saves you the 10%, like I said. And they also have 2 new products, which I would encourage you to try out. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm going to get some myself shortly. And the first one is the platinum elk antler with tribulus. It's definitely a step above the gold, and they actually have increased the potency of it, so it's 50% more potent. So in one bottle, you're getting the equivalent of a bottle and a half of the gold within one same bottle size. Plus you're going to have the effects of the tribulus. And there's a unique synergistic effect that occurs between the elk antler and the tribulus, which creates an increased production of your body's own superoxide dismutase, the most powerful antioxidant in the body, but also glutathione, which we could argue is the second most powerful antioxidant in the body. These are both core foundational enzymes that actually, or at least DMSO is an enzyme, glutathione is an antioxidant, but they both have antioxidant properties, and the superoxide dismutase, SOD for short, is key for blocking the most harmful free radicals that attack our genes on the DNA level. So that's important. And then the other product is the pine pollen pure potency, which is a step above the other pine pollen product that was the gold again, but it also has eleuthero, which is Siberian ginseng, and nettle root mixed in. So it's got the most androgenic effect of any product they sell on their site. And Survival's premise is definitely anabolism, regeneration, and increasing these hormones, both for men and women, that are receding in our culture because of various synthetic estrogens, food estrogens, and a basic lack of natural living, which has caused this sort of decrepitude in people today, at least on the hormonal level. So check those out, try them out, get some of their old products. Colostrum is still my favorite product from them, and yeah, this sale's good till January 7th of 2012, so the savings are going through the whole holidays and into the new year a little bit, so grab it while you can. Even if you see this after January 7th, you can always check out those new products, or just check out the other things on their site. So if we come back to those three main macronutrients, you've got protein, which is the hardest to break down into energy, most energy intensive for the body, resource intensive. Next, most intensive is carbohydrates, and then the easiest for your body to run off for energy is actually fat. For the amount of calories you get from it, with the amount of waste product you get from it, fat is where it's at. And just simply looking up fatty acid on Wikipedia, I'm going to put that down below for link number 2. You can clearly see in there it talks about medical textbooks always listing essential fats as the preferred energy source for muscular tissue, cardiac tissue, and the tissues that can't run off essential fatty acids do have the option of running off ketones, should that be the type of diet you're able to follow. It's definitely not for everyone. If we were to look at the Inuit, who ate a pretty much almost carnivorous diet, they would not be very high protein in my opinion, because they had so much fat in their diet. That brought that sort of protein percentage as total calories around the 30 to 40%. If we're talking high, very high protein, we're looking at over 40% of calories coming, or even closer to 50 or more calories coming from protein. And like I said, that's not sustainable. Over our evolutionary history, we had, at different points, we had fat as our main fuel source, and at other times we had carbohydrates as our main fuel source. And whatever works for you, but generally speaking, it's not going to be protein, and I caution anyone from being on those very high protein diets for long periods of time. And look at supplementing it with some healthy fats or some healthy carbs, whatever works for you. And just think of protein not as the most important thing, as the Greeks would say, the prime importance, but of most important for rebuilding the body, but not as a fuel source. So with that, check out those links below, like and favorite the video, and leave comments and questions below if you want me to address anything else in a future Q&A, as long as the question can pertain to the subjects of my channel. And with that, take care and embrace life without limits.